So I read a romance this week and actually enjoyed it. Who am I? Hey there, it's Mitzi. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to start with this romance that I read. Now, I'm not saying I don't read romance and I don't like romance, but it's not what I gravitate toward reading. It's not my first choice. At one time, in my 20s, that is about all I read, was all sorts of romances. And I read a lot of Christian romance, and I just devoured them. So I think the problem was I just binged them so much that I kind of just tired of them and I needed something different. So that's why I don't read those very often. But every now and then I'll hear a title and think, I might want to read that. So I watch Jane over at Jane Reads, and she is fantastic. If you haven't followed her, I'll leave a link to her down below in my description box, because she's really good at reviewing books, and especially if you read contemporary Christian fiction, because she reads a lot of that. So she's really good at telling you enough about a book to let you know whether or not you want to read it. So I love watching her channel. Anyway, she reads a lot of romances, so I don't read a lot of those, but she was talking about this particular romance, and it reminded me that I had purchased the second book in that series. Hold on a minute, let me get my phone. Hold on. Alright, I picked up my phone because I wanted to make sure that I said this correctly. So the first book in this series is called At Love's Command. I'll put a picture up. And it's by Karen Whitmire. I think is how you say her last name. Well, I've read some of her little romances in the past and enjoyed them. So I had picked up the second one. Book Outlet was having a sale, I think, last year, and I picked up the second one. Well, when Jane was talking about this series, because she had read, it's called the Hanger's Horseman series. That's what it's called. So she was talking about the whole trilogy. I think there's 3 books in the series, and she was saying that I think the second one was her favorite, which is the one I own. It's on my book cart right now. So I thought, well, I'm going to just see if I can find the first one maybe on my Kindle or get an audio copy or something and go ahead and read that one, and then I can get to that second book. Y'all, I already had the book. I went on my Kindle and there was the first book. They must have had some kind of freebie kind of thing, and I downloaded it because it was already on my Kindle. So this past week I read it, and do you know, I really enjoyed that book. I think the reason I enjoyed it so much, though, was because it was historical and it was Western. And I don't read many Westerns, but I participated in a Western-themed readathon this past summer, and I really enjoyed it. So it's kind of piqued my interest in Westerns. And this was a Western-themed romance. So it had all the historical elements that I enjoy. And I just really enjoyed it. So I did want to mention that book. It's called At Love's Command. And now I want to read the second one because it is a trilogy. And I already have that one on my book cart. Like I say, I found that, I think at Book Outlet it was on sale. And I just added it to my box last year when I was doing a Book Outlet order. And so I'm so glad I did, because I don't know if I would ever even got around to reading it, and there it sat on my Kindle. So thank you to Jane for mentioning this series, because I really enjoyed it. Now, she did mention that when she does great reviews, and she mentioned that the beginning was sort of confusing. So when I was reading it, the beginning was confusing for me too, because there's like this scuffle, and what it is the Hangers, is that what it's called? Why can I not remember this? Hanger's Horsemen. They are mercenaries, and so they're out in the Wild West protecting the innocent, sort of thing. So they're for justice and, protecting the good, that kind of. They're these hero cowboys. And one of the leaders, I think he is the leader, Matthew, I think is his name. The story starts by telling about Matthew and his background. So he's out there battling out with the bad guys. So that's how it starts. And it was a little confusing for me. But because Jane had mentioned that, and then how it got better, I did stick with it, and I'm glad that I did. Anyway, Matthew is like the ringleader of these mercenaries, and he meets this lady who happens to be a doctor, and she agrees to be the doctor for this team of this band of cowboys that, you know, saved the day, if he will help her rescue her brother who is being held for ransom. So it's really an interesting story, and I did really enjoy it. So if you do like westerns and you like historical Christian romance, you may enjoy that one. And thank you to Jane for mentioning that one, because again, it was sitting right there on my Kindle and I didn't even realize it. So I picked up a couple of books for Series September, and I wanted to try to fulfill some more of the prompts on the bingo board. And I picked up Mrs. Jeffries Take Stock. I think this is the fourth book in the Inspector and Mrs. Jeffries series. I like this series because it's Victorian, and I like the relationships in this. It's just a fun, cozy mystery, and I like to pick these up from time to time. In this particular one, this is about a money investment that goes wrong, very wrong, and the murder takes place. And of course, Mrs. Jeffries and her team try to solve the case. So the next one I picked up is a favorite. That is Pulp Friction. This is the second in the Apple Cider Slaying series, and I'm so sad because I asked in a reading sprint the other day if she was going to write some more of these, and they said no. And so now I'm sad because there's only 3 in this series, and this is the second. I only have 1 more to read. So I'm really sad about that because this is the perfect cozy mystery for me. This one starts with apple cider slaying. I just talked about that recently. In that one, she's trying to set up an apple cider shop on her granny's apple orchard in West Virginia. And she has kittens named Dolly and Kenny. I mean, it's perfect. And I loved it. I loved the plot. I loved everything about that book. This one continues that. There's another murder at the cider shop. They're using the cider shop and the apple orchard as a venue for, you know, receptions and things like that. So there's a wedding taking place, and at the wedding someone's murdered, and we go from there. And in this one, it takes place in the summer. It's a June wedding. I thought it was going to be a fall one because apples, I think of the fall. But if you look close at this cover, it does look summery once you get into it. But in this one, Granny has a friend who's introduced, and I love her friend. Her friend was a hoot. She has this needlework group, and there was a pastor's wife and these other friends in that group. They were a hoot too. They just made it even better. And then there was a fainting goat in this one. So they're just perfect, and they are my people. I mean, the way that they talk, everything. And it's not... You know, a lot of people who write Southern try to make it Southern. They're y'all and, you know, ain't, and you know how they do. Lord have mercy or whatever they'll say. Well, we do say all that stuff. I know we do. But it's over-exaggerated in a lot of these cozy mysteries. In this one, it seems natural. It sounds like my people, and what they say, the conversations they have, sounds like something that we have, you know, when we have conversations every day. So that's why I feel so at home in this book. And I'm so sad because now I only have 1. So if you know of another authentic sounding Southern cozy that sounds like, you know, I don't think we're going to find one because this is apple cider, an apple orchard in the mountains of West Virginia. It's perfect. Anyway, I highly recommend the Apple Cider Slaying if you like cozy mysteries. The next one is Thursday's Child by Noel Stratfield. I'm not going to talk about this one here because I'm going to talk about it in my book cart spin. This was one of my choices from my book cart spin for this month. But I did finish this one, and I'll talk to you more about that. Just hang on in another video soon. And then I'm also participating in 30 Books in 30 Days, the 30 Books in 30 Days challenge. I decided to read a short story a day, and that's been going great. I picked up the Chronicles of Avonlea at the beginning, and I read through those. And then I picked up Tales from Silverlands by Charles Finger, which is a Newbery. So this also helps me with a series I'm finishing because I consider the Newbery books a series for me. This is one of the earlier ones. It was published in 1925, or it was, I've got 1925 on a post-it. I don't know if that means it was published in 1925 or it was awarded in 1925. Anyway, it was either published then or awarded the Newbery in 1925. So it's an old book. And you can tell because I don't know what they were trying to do to these poor children, but these are not any good. I didn't like these. I mean, I was just making myself read these. It was tough to read through these. They're short stories and they kind of connect together, but they were long and boring to me. So I'm hoping that the next Newbery I pick up, because the last few Newberries I've been reading have not been very good. So I'm hoping the next one will be better. But I did read that for 30 books in 30 days, and thankfully I just read one a day because it was just too much for me. And then I also wanted to read some Miss Marple. I read all the Miss Marple books and I just ranked them recently. I'll leave that in the cards if I think about it, if you're interested in my ranking of the Miss Marple books. So I decided to read some of those short stories too. But then I was so excited because yesterday I received this in the mail. Isn't that beautiful? I have all of these now, all 4 seasons of the short story collections. So I decided that I would not necessarily just read Miss Marple short stories. I would read from this because this is the time to read it. And I was so excited to get this. So I started this one last night and I'm going to read one short story from this, you know, as long as I can for the next couple of weeks. I don't know if I'll get through all of them. I think there's like 12 in here. I don't know if I'll get through all of them because I'm also starting a buddy read with Alice and Art for our annual Ray Bradbury read, and those are short stories, so I will be reading one of those a day as well. But if I can squeeze it in, I'm going to try to read through these 2 because isn't this gorgeous? I'm just so excited to have this to complete the seasonal set of the Agatha Christie short story collection. So I'm also participating in Shaketember, and I'm planning on reading Macbeth. I haven't gotten to it yet, so I need to start. I plan on reading that this afternoon. Like after lunch, I'm going to start reading this one. I picked up the No Fear Shakespeare because for me it's the easiest way to read it, and I am not familiar with Macbeth at all. I know I should be, but I'm not. So I wanted to get an easy version to introduce me to this play. So I plan on reading this week. I'm also going to stop by the library today because I placed a hold on a dramatization of Macbeth and then several Macbeth related like graphic novels and things. So I'm going to pick those up, see what those are about this week too. So I'm excited to participate in Shaketember, in Series September, and 30 books in 30 days. I just read The Market Square by Miss Reed. It's another Miss Reed. If you like Miss Reed, this is, I thought it was a standalone, but it's actually a duology. There's one right after this, and I want to get my hands on it. It's called The Howards of Caxley, and this is from the Caxley Chronicles, and there are 2 in this series. This was the first one, The Market Square. It was published in 1966. I loved this book. It's not very long, but it was really a good book and thought-provoking too. It's about these friends, Bender, I think's his name. Yeah, Bender North and Sepp, his friend Sepp. And they are schoolmates. They grow up together, and then they marry and they build their businesses next door to one another. So they are, you know, in constant contact with one another, and they're friends. But there's a little bit of tension between the 2 of them. And there's always been a little tension because one had money and the other one didn't. And it's not like a huge difference in money, but one had a little more money than the other. So there is a little bit of tension between them, but it's interesting the way that plays out in the story. That's what's so interesting about the whole thing. And how their wives interact and respond, and what that causes within their group. And then as they're raising their children, and how their children's relationship, because their children are best of friends and they grow up together, and how that sort of causes some conflicts between them too. This was really a great book, and I highly recommend it. It's a lot about friendship. So if you like Miss Reed and you like books about friendship and community, this was very interesting, and I zoomed through it because it was such a page turner, and I highly recommend the Market Square. I wanted to mention to you before I go that I picked up my first Victober read in case you want to join us in reading it. It's the group read, The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. Y'all, this is so good. Now, I am on page 228, so I'm about a quarter the way through it. There's like 600, 700 pages in this. So that's why I went ahead and started it, because it is a chunky book. And here's the thing. With these long books, you don't have to finish it in Victober. You know, just get started in October. And I call October Victober now. Get started in October and take 3 or 4 months if you need to. There's no pressure to finish the book in October. It's just a celebration. So if you're reading Victorian literature during October, you're participating. So just know that about it too. But anyway, I wanted to go ahead and get a head start. And I'm so glad I'm reading this, because this is a great way to get me ready and prep for Victober. So I am loving this. Now again, I'm only a quarter the way through it, but I am loving it. And so you still have time if you want to order one and start reading it in October with us. So have you read any of these? Let me know in the comments and we'll chat there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.